the Honorable James Black. He is a ledger artist and he has traveled through many states showing his art. Very talented. I always say this about artists, they see things that most other people don't see. And so I will let you come up and explain how you see what you see. Or you can just, you want him to stay there or be over in the corner? Come over here in the corner.
I just like to see you guys move.
Okay, well, you want me to hug him too?
Don't hug me.
Come on up here, stand over here.
Well, like you said, I'm James Black. I'm I'm originally from here. This is my hometown. Is Watonga. That's where I'm from. It's where my parents are from. They're from here. Uh, my people are from here. The Cheyenne tribe and Arapaho tribe. They when they brought us here to the reservation area to Oklahoma, uh, we were in different bands. Different bands we lived in. Like where Wilbur and Albert, where they're from. They're called the Red Moon Band from out there, way west, the furthest band west. And the band that was from here, what we call the Scabby Band. We're from here. So each community, you could tell who they were, where they're from. Cheyenne bands, Arapahoes. Like the Arapahoes are from around Geary, uh, Greenfield, Canton. Um, those were Arapahoes. And you could tell like the Cheyennes. They're from Watonga, El Reno, Hammond, Weatherford. Sealing. They're Cheyenne communities. And what I'm talking about is my art. As a ledger artist, I could always draw and paint. When I was young, I could always draw. I took some art classes here. Watonga schools. I learned how to do that. And but to me, they didn't really understand native art the way we drew things. Express. They didn't understand. You know, and so I put that away. Put my art down. And then a few years back in like 1993, I went through Sundance. Put up Cheyenne Sundance out here at Concho, and then I wanted to get back into it. Well, before I always thought about it. What did I want to do? Then back then I thought, well, what do I want to do? I said, I don't want to get into the contemporary stuff of painting wolves and bears and stuff like that. I want to do a more of a traditional art. Then I remember my dad had this book. It was called The Southern Cheyenne. Then on it was this ledger drawn. It was orange. It was a black book, but it was outlined in orange. It was a ledger art. So I thought, well, dang, there's my people did that kind of art, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was, so I started drawing it. But then I started reading more about it and learned that it was called ledger art. Then I started doing more research, and I even talked to Craig Moore. Talked to him more about ledger art, how they used to do it back then. Where we were from, Southern Cheyennes were from around Colorado. Originally, around that Platte River, south of the Arkansas. That's where our home range was at. And so it was more of a telling stories. It wasn't art. It wasn't even called art, but it was the way we told our history and our stories because we didn't have a written language. We didn't have a written language to tell. What we did that day, or if a warrior went out to battle. We didn't write it down, keep a journal, write it down. We used to draw it out. What we did. That's why you see all those battle scenes. Because of young warriors would draw. Or young men would draw about a courtship scene, courting a young girl, or even an everyday scene, what they did that day, they would draw it out. They would draw it out, and it was way before, people say, well, it started, with boarding school days, whatever. But this started way before that, like with my people, we started doing that, drawing on rocks, drawing on animal hides. Then eventually, then we had that fort built in southeastern Colorado called Bent's Fort. Then we started trading, with metal cooking utensils, firearms, material, glass beads. Then one of it was this paper called ledger paper, where they used to keep their records on, So we started drawing that, and we started using Crayolas, ink pens, colored pencils and stuff, different mediums like that. Then we start telling our stories on that paper, Then it came, and that's how they came to name it ledger drawings, ledger drawings. And so that was back in the early 1833 when they built Bent's Fort. So we started that then, and then we started doing those stories. Then we got war with the U.S. government called the Plains Indian Wars. Then we then down here the Southern Cheyennes, and we banded with the Kiowas, Comanches. Then we started doing raids down there. Then they called it the Red River Wars. Then that's how they captured a lot of these young warriors, Cheyennes, Arapahoes, Kiowas, Comanches, and they captured 72 of them, and they shipped them to Fort Marion, Florida, in St. Augustine, Florida, this old 100-year-old Spanish fort. Then a lot of them were homesick, so they would start doing ledger drawings of ceremonies and stuff like that, that they'd remembered back, back in Oklahoma when they were and captured there at that fort. Then you had a lot of these ledger artists come out, like Howlin' Wolf, David Pendleton, Okahater, William Coho, all these different Cheyenne ledger artists, You had then Rappos started doing it, and Kiowas started doing it, doing ledger art, and talking about, things that they remembered back home, So if you guys want to go in this next room, I actually got drawings on here, You guys want to all come in here, then I can explain.